All right, we'll take questions if anyone has them. I wanted to say, if before anyone chimes in, just I really appreciated that table, that graph that showed, you know, addict and then in other words, dependence. I've heard examples of that before, but I've never seen that visually. So I mean, I've heard from different speakers from different places, but not in terms of translation, them just sharing their story, where I'm from, you know, clean means this, but I hadn't seen that. And it just, again, for me, opens my eyes to how much work goes into this. Because I'm self-centered and think of myself and read the literature that's always been here since I arrived, that I'm so grateful for. Art has his hand up. You can go ahead.
Art, recovering addict, brilliant presentation. That was absolutely fascinating. Wonderful tool to throw in the tool belt of possible options to go with. Nuance of language is incredible, and just the slightest variation in a word. I speak Spanish, and depending on which country you're talking to, words mean completely different things. But the question I had was the logistics of the introduction of the literature. I was a little unclear, and so I just wanted to clarify. It sounded as though you had basically met with some addicts from the region, began the translation process, and then after you had a body of work, then you met with the elders, and then you met with the influencers and presented the body of work to them. Is that correct?
Well, sort of. Originally, when Doug did the translation, there was a guy living in a place called Bethel who was an addict. And that's how sort of the whole thing got started. But the original translation into Yupik was done at the University of Fairbanks, and then back again into English from the University of Anchorage. Then it was once we got the printed form, after going backwards and forwards, we took it out to Bethel, back to Bethel, which is the main hub for the Kuskokwim area. And we had some addicts. Well, actually, we had some people read it. There was one addict out there. There's a woman out there that it's a bit of a hit and miss, but she actually did some reading of it, and it was never actually. It was never anybody that actually went out there and sat and listened to this in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. So that's our next step. That's something the world wants us to do. They want us, and we told them that, you know, we're going to go out there. They asked us to come out there and actually help them form a Narcotics Anonymous meeting and get the literature all done. And they had just a bazillion questions. A lot of their questions of Native people centered around the word God in our literature and different things like that. So that's our plan to go out there. We've sent them out there so they can start pre-reading them and you know, make sure they understand them. And then when we go out there, we'll sit with them in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting and have them read it. We have done that here in, not in an NA meeting, but we have had 2 people read it, actually 3 people that have read it, and we've got good results. We were told it's a very good translation. So that's the next step. Once we do that, and we'll sign it off with the world. The world sent me some paperwork. I'll sign that saying we've done every step for this, and then they will make that a piece of NA literature, and that's when it's finalized. So that's where a lot of the professionalism and everything else, because when we finish doing all of this, it's going to become a piece of NA literature.
I appreciate that, but my question was, you had talked about going to the elders within Alaska, within the community for the natives, and the presentation of the work to them so that they would feel comfortable distributing it. So you had already created the body of work prior to approaching the elders.
Right, yes, we've done, yes. When we take that, when we take it out there, we'll be doing, when we go to Bethel, we'll be doing a presentation as well to the community, and handing these out to the community. And the community elders are the people that you speak to. And actually in Bethel is one place where they do have a tribal court. So kids that get into trouble, or, you know, and drugs and drinking and all that, they come before the tribal court. So this is just another way we can get the message out. And it's sort of, like I said, and I think in most cultures, it's like that, native cultures, is that they have a lot of respect for the elders. No matter who the children are, they still have respect for the elders. So that's another reason why, you know, they need to be approached, because there's still a bit of a stigma, you know, about addicts in native culture. So, but as, you know, our influence into their culture, they're seeing more and more drug use. And in fact, you know, with this COVID-19, just to give you an idea, they cut back a lot of the plane services to the villages in Alaska. You know, the only way the villages in Alaska can get their drugs is via plane. There's no other way to get there. You can't drive a truck there or anything like that. You got to fly in there. So because of that, there's been a lot of things going on in the villages because people aren't getting their drugs. There's been a lot of people turning up to behavioral health centers and detoxes and different things out in the villages and the big hubs, you know, requesting help. So that's another reason why we wanted to try and jump on this a little more. So I hope that answers your question.
That did, thank you. And if I don't see another hand up, so I'll jump in with a second question if that's okay. With regards to funding, as you're doing this project and you're ready to submit it to universities or to professional translators, do you request funding from World?
No, the actual funding comes out of the Alaska region. We fund it out of that. The World, when we send it to them, they will get a translator and they will pay for that part of it because they want to make sure the translation thing, you know, they want to have their thing. And that's when you'll get a bunch of things come back. They'll say, well, we want to check on this phrase. We want to check on that. Can you go back and ask them this question? And like I said, just for the key tag, you know, Shane at the translation board, him and me, you know, we're bouncing emails backwards and forwards just on that one little thing. So you can imagine when you're doing a whole IP, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be reviewed on the translation.
Fantastic, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Dennis?
I'm Mandy, I'm an addict. Hey Art, just in also response to what you were asking, I do believe that NA's contributed a few $100s towards our translation projects in the Alaska region. It was just minimal compared to what the actual costs of translations are. But there was definitely a few $100 or something like that that was given to the Alaska region in support of that.
Thank you, Mandy. Desiree?
There we go. Okay.
There we go.
Desert Addict. So I just want to say that's awesome. It's a lot of work goes into putting into the translation of just, you know, literature, things that, you know, everything's usually in English that we kind of take for granted. And it's just amazing to see all the work that puts into it. Grateful for all the work that you guys put into it that are involved in that. And just want to know that we appreciate you. And I'm sure the communities that we're trying to outreach really do appreciate it as well, and trying to find a balance to kind of include their cultural diversity into it and keep that in mind when taking meetings and trying to reach the addicts that are still suffering that, you know, wouldn't normally have access to that type of, or this type of recovery. So just wanted to say, appreciate you.
Bit like when Narcotics Anonymous first came around and there was that stigma about addicts way back when, you know, we face that now in the villages today because of that stigma. They sort of understand if someone's drunk, but they don't understand if someone wants to, you know, shoot heroin or you know, anything else. So it's, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge in some areas.